Friends, one of the main purposes for which my blog site and video attempts to do is to convey to you the story of the Jews in prophecy. It's my firm conviction that very few people understood this subject any more than J. Frank Norris, and that's why I spent a lot of time. And I say to each one, for your information, there will be much more in coming days, and I hope you will follow with me as I try to give you some insight as to the amount of knowledge that J. Frank Norris, as a result of many years of study, knew about this subject. I'm reading for you brief excerpts from an address given by J. Frank Norris at the Bethel Jewish Synagogue sometime in the late 1940s in Fort Worth, Texas. Of course, that's where his church was, the First Baptist Church. The history of the Jews proves without question the divine character of the Word of God. That's what J. Frank Norris believed. He goes on to say, it goes without saying that I, Norris, have no sympathy whatsoever with any group of any form of anti-Semitic propaganda. It was Napoleon, when asked by one of his infidel generals what proof there was of God, to which he, Napoleon, then looked at one of his marshals, who was a Jew, and said to the others, "Gentlemen, there sits the unanswerable argument to your unbelief," referring to this marshal, who incidentally was a Jew. Let me illustrate the miracle of the Jew. They, the Jews, saw the proud Egyptian army perish in the waters of the Red Sea. They have witnessed the ruin and fall of the Babylonian Empire. They have outlived the Caesars and the dark ages which followed. They have been through all civilizations and shared in all of its convulsions. But here they stand today as distinct as ever, and at last have returned to the land promised them in the Abrahamic covenant. For centuries, they were forbidden to claim Jerusalem as their own. They have been massacred by the thousands. They have been banished from place to place. 7 times the city of Jerusalem has been destroyed. It was Nebuchadnezzar in the year of 607 BC who besieged the city and carried its inhabitants into captivity. In the year, or rather I should say the years following AD, beginning with Titus, it was the Roman armies that destroyed the rebuilt temple and sacked the city in 70 AD. And then years later, in about the year of 637 AD, the advent of Mohammedanism arose and built the Mosque of Omar on the site held sacred by the Jews. For a period of about 500 years, it was the fanatical crusaders who unleashed pain and suffering on this land held in trust by God for his anxious people, the Jews. In concluding, J. Frank Norris follows with this following statement. He says, fulfilling prophecy began to take shape in 1917 when the British General Allenby marched into Jerusalem, and according to the Balfour Decree, the British took charge and stated, quote, "The British government looks with favor upon the restoration of Palestine to the Jews, and religious liberty shall be guaranteed." And friends, God works in a mysterious ways to bring these things about. He works in mysterious ways, His wonders to perform. And this little sideline as a tidbit of a paradoxical situation. 6,000, or rather 600,000 Egyptians were engaged by General Adderley to build the railroad in 1917 from the Nile River to furnish a water supply. Paradoxically, the army of Moses leading the children of God out of Egypt 4,000 years previously was comprised of an army of 600,000 men. And so, summing it all up, no wonder Moses exclaimed in Deuteronomy 28:37, in which he said, "And thou," speaking of the Jews, "shall become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead them." Friends, this is just a prelude to a marvelous story just beginning to unfold. I hope you'll keep listening. Look for more on this subject in days to come. Good night, and may God bless the United States of America.